Thank you everybody for coming. I guess you're having a very nice time here in Barcelona and enjoying the conference, right? Cool. My name is Anton. I work for JetBrains, and I'm going to talk about IntelliJ IDEA tips and tricks for Spring developers. I assume that you are Spring developers, and yeah, that's me. Actually, I write Kotlin most of my time, and I don't really write Java, but I will try today. I will do my best. Just for you, I usually ask people like previous years who is using IntelliJ, who is using something else. I assume everybody is using IntelliJ, but there is always one who uses Vim. Yes, that's the person. Nice. At least, is it Neo Vim or just Vim? Neo Vim. Nice, nice. Perfect. I actually would like to ask how many people are using Community Edition instead of Ultimate? Just some. I would have assumed that there's like 1/3 is using Community Edition, but it's nice that everybody is like using Ultimate, and because usually I show the features that are available in both, so that no one feels sad that I'm showing something that they cannot use. But today I will be showing just a lot of different things that would work almost for everybody. Okay, we have this page in the documentation. You can, look it up, check what are the features there that we prepared for Spring developers. Actually, there's much more, and this page is outdated, as usual, but a lot of things that we are adding now, they are kind of work in progress. There's a lot of plugins that were like third-party plugins, and now we acquired them, and we are moving the functionality into the platform so that you get everything out of the box. And when you move something around, some things break, some things change, some things get lost, and some things appear. So there's like a lot of things happening right now in this area, and the next release is going to be much more feature-rich than what I can show today, right now. I could have used the nightly build, but it might crash and wouldn't be nice. Okay, that's all my slides. I want to move into the IDE, and my point here is I'm going to show not only the Spring features. Actually, it will be the least number of Spring features that I show here today. I will be showing everything just randomly. And just how many of you are using light theme? Dark theme? Who prefers the dark theme? Okay, who prefers the light theme? A few of the who prefers the high contrast theme? Do you know how to switch between them? Some people know, but there is a very nice menu, by the way, on the top right there. It shows the action that I just pressed, because I will not be naming the keyboards, the keystrokes. And you get to the switch menu, and actually it's a very nice entry point for tailoring your workbench for how you want to work with it. And switching the theme is just as easy as, high contrast theme container is already disposed. Wow, that's a nice feature. I hope it will be recorded something for the team to check. Nice. Okay. Anyways, the point is you know where to look for it. Color themes, K-maps. If you work with a colleague who uses a weird K-map like me, and you still want to use your own like Mac OS to do something, you can switch quickly on this normal keyboard and then switch it back to his custom K-map and whatsoever. The other things that we have here, the view mode is a very interesting feature that appeared, one by one. We were adding them, like go to the full screen mode, go to the Zen mode, like hide everything, like basically no toolbars, no tool views, whatever. Then you get just the editor and you create code, right? How do you navigate then? Do you know the shortcuts to navigate? If you are in this Zen mode, how do you switch to some file that you just opened a few minutes ago. You don't remember. I don't have tabs, and tabs are gone now. So if I use one shortcut, Command E, I get around pretty quickly for everything. You can just hide all the tabs, everything, like nothing is cluttered in front of you. So just the single trick here relieves you from the real estate that you have in the Workbench. Let's go back to the normal mode. Enter, exit the Zen mode, and we are still in the full screen mode. What else is there for that little pop-up on the top right? I enabled the presentation assistant, and the compact mode is for. There are two modes for the new UI. Who is using the classic UI still? You gotta make an effort. It's gonna be gone soon. Like, you gotta make an effort. Switch to the new UI. You will thank yourself later. But compact mode is this little setting for the new UI to shrink the toolbars, remove the white space, and so on. So it will be more compact. Other things that we have, like I really like zoom right now. I'm on 125. The default is this. For presentations, I sometimes use 150. So I don't really need the presentation mode anymore. It's just the zoom feature. Cool. Can anyone bring a glass of water, please? Because like in 5 minutes, it's gonna be bad. Okay. Please. Anyways, so these are the small things that I usually do for myself, like tailor the Workbench and make it comfortable for myself to work with the code, with the project, and so on. What else is there? We could navigate through the over the toolbars, right? Going to the different places by using the shortcuts, but you never remember what they are. You could look them up in this recent files dialog and figure out, okay, I'm gonna be using project view a lot, so command 1 is the shortcut that I probably need. But you sometimes wouldn't find the shortcut that you need, and it's possible to find an action. Let's say one of the very popular things to do is when you have a project window open and you have a file like open in front of you, you want to quickly locate it in the project view because you have navigated over the different parts of the project, you were studying the structure and so on. There is an action for that, and sometimes you can do it with the mouse. So if you hover on this menu here, you will actually see select opened file, right, in the project tree, and I can locate it there. But for this, what I just did was a mouse click, right? So I have to grab the mouse or like navigate there and click that. And but maybe you want to find a shortcut for this. So if you know the action, I once did that, right? I read the select open file. Now I have shift select open, actually select in select file in project view. Currently I do have a shortcut assigned, but by default it's not there. So if you find any action in the shift or search everywhere dialog, thank you very much. You're my saver on your beer. Beer for water. Cool. So I have a shortcut there, and I have located the action that I would like to use, but by default it's not there. And if you find any action in here that doesn't have a shortcut, Alt-Enter will give you the opportunity to set any shortcut immediately. About shortcuts, there was a question in this conference app, if it's possible to set the same shortcut for different actions in different contexts, and the answer is yes. So there is a possibility, or there are examples even if you, for instance, Command D works differently in different contexts. So in the editor it would duplicate the line, but in the let's say in the project you have selected two files, Command D would bring up the diff view for you, right? These kind of things. Okay, it's getting hard and hot, and I'm losing my my flow here. So Spring, let's talk about Spring a little bit. We have a Spring, like the most famous project here, and we could do something about it. But imagine I just don't know anything about it, and I'm not even sure if I know Spring really well. And I opened it. I just, it's a clean import into the IDE, and I'm kind of studying it and trying to make sense what is there, and I imported it as a Maven project right now. So one of the hard things about the enterprise projects in general is managing the dependencies. And imagine you want to add a dependency. What you do normally, you go look it up in Maven Central, find out the Maven coordinates, start typing here something, how to add the dependency, and so on. For Spring, it's get even harder if you have to add multiple dependencies, but now we have this edit starters dialog. So if you didn't notice, there's like this thing, right? So it's both for Gradle and Maven. So you'll find it there, and if you need to add any starter, just go and select. Very cool feature. Automatically adds the required dependency that you select here and reloads the project, and you're ready to go, right? Well, obviously the other things that some people just don't know, Control N for me, maybe something else for you. To work with dependencies manually, if you add just a library, not a starter, let's say manage dependency, and you find whatever you need, it will just generate the code snippet for you there. Or the dependency template, it scans whatever you have in the index, in the local repository, and suggests what you want to add, maybe whatever Guava, and it should actually should have been populating the package as well. Let me try that. Maybe it's also broken. Guava. Okay, it should have been like, yes, that's a bug. I mean, it's always like at the presentations I find bugs that should work for many years. Anyways, let's look at the code. What else we can do here? For instance, we are inspecting what's in the project. That I don't know what's in the project, and for whatever reason, that's my personal thing. I sometimes like to check what's in the project by the diagram, visually, not just inspecting the structure. This diagram by default is by no means useful, but it's the default view, right? But it's just like, I don't know, it's a coincidence that normally people would not go inspecting those little icons up there, and that little button right here, show dependencies, would actually make it useful in one click. At least this diagram, maybe not on every project, but it will make my life a little bit easier studying it. Although I realize that for a normal project, probably we will get around quicker by just navigating the code, right? But I know it's just a personal thing. I would do that sometimes. But on the previous diagram, on the previous state of the diagram, what we have seen is this little view or a little tree of the base entity going down to owner, vet, and pet, and so on. And this is something interesting, right? It kind of reveals some information that there is a hierarchy, and maybe I want to study it. So I can navigate F4 to a base entity and start from there, maybe. But I realized that it's probably a hibernate entity, and it's mapped superclass and so on. And maybe I want to check the entity relationship diagram for that. Okay, that might be useful. It seems on the first glance, but when I dive deeper, I realize I'm missing some things, like what is exactly and how is related to what. I mean, let's say pet and an owner. I know now, but imagine I don't know. This information doesn't reveal how many pets an owner can have, right? Is it an n plus n to 1 or 1 to 1 relation or many to many relation and so on? So this diagram doesn't show that. That's a shortcoming. But there is a nice view that we can check. Command 4, that we can check for more information, and that's called a JPA Explorer. And there is another view called persistence. So it might be confusing. By default, you have persistence view. This is the one. You have all the entities and how they are mapped, and there's this entity manager factory. Like it's actually the default name for the data source. But JPA Explorer comes from the plugin called JPA Buddy, that is being integrated step by step into the into the default functionality right now. So these two views will be merged in the next release. Currently, they are slightly different, but it will be one persistence view with more features from JPA Explorer. What is useful here is you can go to, let's say, select entity, maybe owner. Let me zoom it in and check where it refers to, which repositories are related to that entity, some other things, right? So here we can see that from owner we can get to the pet, we can get to the pet type, we can get to the visit. If we check the pet, we can get to the visits. That's the terminal entity, and it doesn't refer to any repositories, so there is no repository to talk with it. And the same about visits. So let's do a simple, interesting modification to this application. For instance, we want to create a new repository. Now let me zoom it in. Spring Data JPA. Select that and create it. So it's there. It's empty. We can work with it. And maybe I would like to create a service because there is no service as well. And maybe I want the service to be created in the same place next to the visit repository. So how do I do that? If I don't have a project window open, I can open it, of course, locate the visit repository where I created it, and then in the same package create the service. Very naive workflow, right? How we can do it immediately without going through the whole process, we can do it with a shortcut. There is a specific one for me. It's Control-Option-N. And it's going to create whatever I want in the same directory, right next to the file. Unfortunately, there is now no action to create a service immediately from for the repository, but I think we're going to add that as well. But let's create one manually. Visit service. No, it doesn't look nice this way. It's going to be service. And maybe you want to start, I don't know, implementing some functionality, finding visits, maybe. Visits. And that's going to be what's going on. Visit. Yeah. Import class. Util. Okay. So find visits for date range, something like this. In Kotlin I would write like this, but here I would have to throw an exception for it to compile. But anyway, I know that I have to talk to the repository, but I haven't injected the repository to my service yet. What can I do? I can start typing or create a constructor, create a field, and so on. This is like a a lot of manual work that otherwise is predictable. What we can do instead, start typing, because we know that the bin already exists in the context that we just created for the repository, and then visit repositories right there. It exists, right? So it's a bin. So we are not completing the code anymore. We are working with components that will generate code for us. So if I select Spring repository, it just created the constructor, the field for me, and so on. I can start, working further from there. It's still a work in progress. Like, there's a lot of improvements coming to this, so it would be very, very fluent. You still have to go through a lot of actions, and actually think through what you actually want to create. But it's still all predictable, and for many things we can do it automatically. It's just not there yet. So maybe I want to do some custom method for the repository, like create one. And if you know POSIX completions in the IDE, let me explain what it is. For instance, you type something like a string, right? And you realize I want to create a variable out of it. .var is going to introduce the variable, and same for some print line statements and so on. Very simple. So here we have a similar functionality when working with this repository, but instead of expanding the code snippet, it will actually call out some of the wizards for generating the code. So for instance, we want a new find method, and maybe find instance, and then you see it's getting a little bit complicated. We are suddenly back into the 90s when we have wizards. But anyways, we can select an attribute, let's say date, and then the condition is between the dates, and well, it's okay, we can generate the code. And now if we go to the repository, we can see there's a visit, there's a method generated, there is a related problem because we didn't finish writing code here, and there's some problem because, well, we probably are not following the convention or something else. Return value of the method is never used. Found problems related. Okay, so for now we can just ignore it. But you see, it's like we give you a tool to generate the code, but it's not perfect in this regards, like in this workflow. How else we could do that? I think a better scenario how to approach that. We don't have the method yet, and we start by typing the code, list visit, for instance. We need some visits. Sorry, we need to import that. Import, and then start typing. The completion that works here right now is the completion by the AI assistant. It's getting in a way, but I'm ignoring it, so ignore it with me right now. So find by, I don't know, visit date between, and the completion in the pop-up would actually show me what else I have there, and that follows the convention. That will generate the correct method name. The completion there is generative, right, on the top. You might generate something and then it would not comply with something else. Like, for instance, here we generated it, but we cannot resolve the property visit date. There is no property in the visit method, and it immediately becomes like an inspection, and it's reported, so you didn't follow the convention. Something is wrong. We can, in some cases, fix it with extract JPQL query, like on the top, but not this time because there is no property. The property needs to exist. So we can try it like this, and then if I just didn't use the refactoring, I just changed the method name, there is a little snippet for you to actually go and check the references of that method and actually call the refactoring and rename the method in the call sites. Otherwise, your code will be broken. So that's a little trick. Or rename usages. We don't have usages there anyway. So let's check the visit entity. We do have a date there, right? So now it's a valid name for the method, and it follows the convention. But maybe I would like to, do it this way. So it's a little productivity trick sometimes when you really don't follow the convention. Let's say you don't want to follow the convention for the names. Maybe you want to extract and configure and find something for anything like this. So I'm just mangling the name right now, and that just doesn't follow and doesn't mean anything, but there is a context around it. So if I try renaming it normally, like Shift F6, I first get some suggestions, but after a while, like after a few milliseconds, it comes up with better names. This is the feature that comes from AI Assistant, and it suggests, well, you depending on your class name, depending on the other text information that you have there, depending on the usages of this class, maybe you want to rename it this way. So a better name. Good. So we can use that now, and we didn't add the range for the dates, but we are not going to fix that anyway. So like it's not going to be a full scenario that I'm going to show you. So the issues that I was showing to you when you type something and that doesn't comply with the convention. Let's go back there. Yeah, here. So we don't have a query. The method wouldn't follow the by visit date range. Yeah, that should break it. So that you can see on the back it's yellow, right? So this kind of things happen in Spring Framework very easily. The framework is very sparse. Your components are scattered across the project. It's very hard to keep a very good discipline and maintain, maintain the codes this way that when you change something in one place, it wouldn't hit the other place, especially if you extract it into the libraries. Then for this kind of things, you either need CI, integration tests, or I don't know, maybe some static analysis. And in IntelliJ, yes, we do static analysis online. Like when you have the file open, you would see that. But if you don't open the file, there are some indications, like in the problems view, for instance, here, problems view, that something is not right sometimes, this way, or for all the problems. But there is an integration with another product from JetBrains. It's called Qodana, which is using the engine from IntelliJ to run the scans on the code and report them as a nice dashboard. So if I go to the tools and I check Qodana, try code analysis with Qodana, this thing brings up the wizard again and allows you to specify some profiles. It can be synced with the profile that you have for the inspections in your IDE. Whatever inspections you have configured, maybe you are tailoring them for yourselves. Enable some of the features. Let's say I want to check the vulnerabilities, I want to check the licenses, if I'm using the compatible licenses in my project and so on. And then let's say try running it. It's gonna run a few seconds in my machine because the project is already indexed, and I can get the result and browse it. But this is not like a console. It's the normal classical view by grouping by different types of issues. You can actually go to the report in in the local browser and check it out there and inspect what was, well, the issue. So for instance, the problem that we have introduced into the code was in the visit repository, and that's the, what's the issue? It's related to Spring Data, I guess. Must be related to Spring Data. Visits. Okay, let's check that in here. It's a little more convenient, I think. The service. Where are the files? Search for the file. Visit repository. Was it? No. Oh, I've lost it. Visit repository. Maybe my caches are not updated. Yeah, anyways, let's skip that. And not working for me. But you can browse it here, and you can then integrate this into the CI workflow. And that CI is actually will be connected to a team dashboard. And from the dashboard, it connects back to the IDE, notifying you that something, went wrong, that something is broken, some conventions are not followed, and you can set the thresholds, like you shouldn't have new issues, for instance, in the project introduced after, after some baseline. How much time do you have? 20 minutes, right? So, are you using functionality for the databases in IntelliJ? Right? Who is not using it? Okay, you know everything for that part. I shouldn't dive in, but oh, actually, before that, let's do something else. Docker is a nice little feature for all the IT developers. If you go to the run configurations, by default, you would have something like this: that the application runs on your local machine. You can run in the container, and it means that you can actually start debugging it in the container as well. So how does it work for you? Would it work for you if you configure that? Let's say you manage targets, you specify the name for the image, right? You can specify some additional properties and so on, and then you can configure this environment or this target for the run configuration. And once we do that and run, let's actually debug. It's more fun. So we run the debugger. It tells me that the local port now is 6328, right? It's random every time. But if I wanted to have it fixed, okay, because I made introduced issues in my code, let's delete that. I mean, it's getting in the way right now. Restart. It's a different port now. So I actually mapped to the fixed port as well, but if I wouldn't do that, then this random port would do the trick for me. And then I can just open it in the browser. That's the port, right? Cool. Can I check if my breakpoints work? So for instance, find owners, owners controller, and maybe locate the method. So call the structure dialog, find owner like this, set the breakpoint, and go back to the page and click the button. We are there. Nice. So we are now debugging the application that runs in the container. Very useful thing. And you get all the same features from the debugger, even like checking what's loaded into the application and maybe finding the application context even for the Spring framework, right? We maybe want to label it, show the instances, and then in any part of the code, like in any part of the execution, we can refer to the application context, even if the class that we are, currently in doesn't have a reference to that. It's a very cool feature. So the databases. Spring comes with this little nice file called Docker Compose, and we can start any database or any resource that is, configured right here, just by running this from the Gather icon. I actually already have this running, so I just did that before the presentation, and I have connected to the database from my data tools view, which is now also related to everything that I do in the IDE, right? When we write JPA queries and so on. So for instance, if I go to the visit entity, do Alt-Enter and run query in JPA console, I run it, and it gives me the result back, right? Same for if I just want to work with database directly. Owners, for instance, do something here, write the query. It will add some, completion, like where name. Sorry. Where name. Yeah, first name is like maybe starts with G. Would it work? Invalid filter criteria. Is. Sorry. Not writing SQL that much these days. So, yeah, cool. And actually it gives me commit statements as well, like, or the editing facilities there here as well, like George's, for instance, and commit. So it will be committed back to the database, and if I select everything again, you see like the changes persisted. All right. So what else could we do? Let me move away from Spring and just dive into the. Actually, no, I will not move away from Spring. I will still use a Spring project, but I will show something else in this window. So here I have a Spring project where where I'm trying to integrate. Let's say I'm trying to integrate some legacy code that, by default, you wouldn't, just by looking at it, you wouldn't make sense what it does, and who can tell what this code does? It's not bubble sort, I can assure you. But I made it on purpose, right? I have found this code on the internet, and I have renamed all these like little variables to made it unreadable, basically, for you. So imagine you now have to integrate some legacy code into your new shiny Spring Boot application. There is a nice AI assistant plugin that would help you with that. So explain what it does. So let's see. It tries to analyze the code. It will actually collect the context. It will check what are the dependencies, right? So the algorithm, it checks what is it using, and where is it being used, and streams the explanations to me. So it tells me, it's a convex hull algorithm in Java, whatever it means, right? Now I can just Google how it works, and if I want to study a little more, but maybe that's not the point here. I want to make this code a little more readable and refactor it and so on. The very first step for the refactoring would be to check if the tests run, but it's a legacy code. There are no tests, right? So maybe it makes sense to generate some tests, or at least make sure that, somehow assure that I'm doing the right thing. So there is a thing called, or action called generate unit tests. So that would generate a simple unit test for me this time. And for generating tests, there are 3 decision points for the large language model, what they need to do. First of all, there is a decision point. Should it be, what kind of bootstrap should there be? Should it be a simple unit test? Should it be an integration test? Should it be parameterized test? Should it use JUnit or something else? So there are a lot of questions to answer to that one. Then you want to ensure the coverage, and there are no, there is no AI that will generate you 100% coverage. It doesn't know. It doesn't know how to make the coverage. It can just generate something, and we can just check how much it actually covered, right? So assume I'm accepting those tests right now, and maybe they will even succeed if I just run them. And the third part of this process is actually validating if the result with those parameters is actually the correct one, and no AI knows which is the correct one. You as a developer only know what should be correct and what shouldn't be. So if you run that, let's see if it actually succeeds. I'm just curious. Sometimes it generates tests that are pretty good, and I get very good coverage, and sometimes, well, you have to fix it. Instantiating the tests, instantiating the text. Okay. All right. Sorry, I need to roll back the changes here. Roll back and then try running it again. Oh my God. So what's okay? I need to roll back everything. The tests. Yeah, so you see 2 of them pass and 1 of them you have to fix. So you would still have to look at the code, read it, but at least you have the entry point. You now understand what this code supposed to be doing, and you probably would understand the domain, so that you would be able to generate good data for that. But back to our initial code, and our code is pretty bad still. Maybe we want to improve it a little bit and ask to refactor it. So it does pretty much the same process. Starts collecting the context. What are the dependencies? We have 1 more dependency now compared to the previous step, and it will start streaming the response by first listing the summary of the changes that it suggests, and then actually providing you with the new code that looks a little bit more readable, I would say, but it's not a refactoring, it's a patch. So that's the issue here, and the patch might be destructive to my code. So if I try to apply it, see the diff and apply, well, it probably will break the use sites of this project or of this class. So how can I get around that? In the same prompt, like where was it? AI assistant. I can tell it, please. You shouldn't please it, but you can. Please keep class and method names and do not return null. So you can from the methods as result. You can add more constraints in the way, like how you want this code to be generated. So if I run that, I will get another round of the results. So I can iterate, right? I can add more constraints, but this time with this step, it probably will generate something that I will be able to integrate directly into my code without breaking the application. It will compile them. My battery is running low, but we only have 5 minutes, so I hope it's not gonna die in 5 minutes. So see the diff and apply, accept. Let's check if it works. Still a few problems. Let's ignore them because those are tests. We just generated them anyway. So where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Yeah, this thing. So we're gonna just delete the tests. Fixing tests by deleting them. And you see, we made the improvement to the code. Now it has a little bit more verbose, names in the code, more verbose names for the variables, but we still have the old names for the functions. And like previously, I was showing you the rename feature. So maybe I want to rename this run method somehow. And it will find the domain-specific name for my method, find convex hull. For instance, and this D class should be called something else, maybe like 2D point or coordinate, because we are working with a geometry here. The coordinate, for instance, select all and click OK. And in the controller, something is broken again. Yeah, because it's looking for the coordinate array, but the convex hull is accepting the list. So let me fix that for you. Size, length, okay. But you get the point. Like length should it be? We don't need the array inputs like this. So moving on, you can do like more iterations on how to improve that, whatever you come up with. But I was showing you the interaction between the editor and the chat. The chat is not really a productive thing because you're moving away from the editor. It's much more productive if you stay in the editor and do everything the same way. How can you do that? There is an action called inline code generation. Ask AI to generate code. So you can type your spec there and it will generate something. But if you have selected some method, or some snippet of code, Command W, like this, a method, and do the same, it will actually provide you a prompt for modifying the selected code. And maybe you want to say, rewrite in functional style with no mutable variables, like this. And in the side-by-side diff view, it will, run the same process and start rewriting the code. And maybe if you like it, then you accept what it generated, or you can just cherry pick what it generated on the side. So with this, I only have 2 minutes left. My battery might die any moment. Maybe there are some questions. Maybe if you have questions later, you can find me. But yeah, there are a couple of.
About testing generation,
Can you?
Hello?
Yeah.
About testing generation with AI, can the AI actually produce like bin mocking, for example?
You can specify it in the prompt and say, I want this to be mocked and so on. So you have to be expressive. You have to become a writer, and you have to be very precise. If you give a very generic question, you will get a very generic, popular answer. So for instance, it reflects how it reflects in Spring projects. Let's say you have a Spring Boot project, but with no database integration yet. At some point, you decide, oh, I want to add database support to persist my entities, and you type in the chat, how do I, provide me instructions step by step how to integrate database into my project, and most likely 99% of the cases it will generate JPA, Spring Data JPA code for you, but maybe you don't want that, you want it to be JDBC. You specify that I want JDBC, and it generates the code that is Spring Data JDBC, but then it generates a properties file for your application properties file for you, and there is JPA inside. Perfect. So there is like a huge bias towards some default things that are very popular. Same with tests, right? So if you don't provide that specification, how it should be done, you will get something very default. Yeah. I hope it answered the question. There was another one.
Good day. I have a question regarding the security concerns. So many companies actually do not want to share the code. I don't know, for example, in case of the AI assistant. So does the AI generate, I mean,
by default, I know the question.
Yes.
I can answer because everybody is asking this question.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So it goes, like by default, the way I'm showing it right now, it goes to the service. The service is by us, and we are proxying it to different models, right? The models might be local to the service in JetBrains, or there might be hosted somewhere else by OpenAI and so on. This is what you're asking about. We don't want to send it further out of our DMZ zone, right? There is a version coming by JetBrains AI that you can put on your hardware, on your data center, whatever, and train your own models and integrate them into, your service that is yours now. It will not leave the data center. That's one part of the story. The other part of the story is more lightweight. There is a full line completion plugin that works locally, completely locally on your machine, but it's only for completing. Right. And if you go to the settings, let's say, first of all, the plugin, full line completion plugin here, right? If it's installed, then in the code completion settings, where is that? Okay, there are a lot of settings. Code completion. There is, machine learning assisted completion. And for every language, you would download a separate model. So what we are trying to do is, because it runs locally and it requires computing resources, and IntelliJ needs time for indexing, then we don't want your machine to heat up and explode. Then we try to optimize it as much as possible. And then if you are not using something like Python, for instance, why would you download the model? So there is a lot of optimization right now. Yep. Any more questions? Yeah. Let's take the last one here.
Also related to the testing, to generating tests. Can we, can it see the production code, or can we just limit to see the public methods, let's say, when generating the tests?
I'm not sure I understood the question completely.
Sorry. So, for example, I had some tests generated with Copilot or something like this, and sometimes it would generate tests that would pass, even though the code was wrong, because it would see all the production code.
It would pass by accident, I would tell you. Yes.
Yeah, but can we instruct it just to see the public API, let's say, that needs to be tested, and not the implementation, let's say?
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Like if you do it TDD way, I tried it. So I had public methods that did not return anything and generated the tests, and it generated pretty much the same thing. It does not actually look at the code and the implementation. There is no such a sentience, or it's not smart in this way. It can generate stuff and predict stuff based on the text that it already has. Removing the implementation is like removing some information, I imagine, So it will make the context cleaner. In this case, yes, you will get an interesting test. It will, fail. I tried that, of course, and then your question would be, how do I proceed by generating the implementation to comply with the tests, right?
Not really, more about using the AI to generate the test, but without it seeing the
it's possible you need just the public API, right? It will do that. Maybe you have to experiment. The answer is it always depends, but you will probably come up with some extra ideas when you look at the generated code. You come up with more ideas. What else you could specify to get a different result? So there is always the iteration process, and same with the tests. So let's finish it up now. Pretty hot here. If you want to ask more questions, just find me anywhere in the at the conference. And thank you for coming.